I'm Joe Thayer. I'm 61 years old. I was injured in 1975, so 40 years ago. I was injured in a Saturday afternoon outing with my fraternity at the time. We were on a lake and I was hot and I just went for a swim in the water. And went in for a swim. As I ran into the water, I went into a dive and there happened to be a big boulder in my way. And I broke my neck at C4 or 5. Fortunately, it was incomplete, so I've had some return, which has been real useful. But that's been 40 years, as I mentioned, 1975. And I was in the hospital quite a while. I was a junior in college. Part of my recovery was going back to school. I wasn't ready to leave school at the time. I graduated, so I went around for a master's degree. And in 1979, then I was able to go out on my own. And we got a job with Pacific Northwest Bell at the time. And moved to Seattle in 1979. And I've been here since. Through all the years that from 79 to now, I've never had assistance to help me get along. I've never had a need for somebody to come in to help with any particular activities of daily living or not. I've just been fortunate enough with my return and my strength to get along without that sort of help. I have to admit, I do have a house cleaner come in every 2 weeks, which I appreciate. There was a time where I didn't have a house cleaner. There was a 5-year stretch there that I thought, well, I could do this on my own. And I did. But I learned that I do not like cleaning toilets. It's not a fun thing for me to do. Or showers, or one time I was doing my floors and I thought I would get this spot over here. And I just tumbled onto the floor. And so I realized that, well, there's easier ways to do it. So I've been having a house cleaner come help me out every 2 weeks. It's been great. And I have a gardener come to do my yard whenever the need calls. I talked to the realtor about it and we looked at houses, and it turns out that everyone we looked at would need some work, something done, bigger bathroom or hallways or a ramp or something. And so she said, well, have you ever thought about building a house? And I hadn't. It just so happened that she knew a developer that had a piece of land, and he'd sell me the land if he could build the house. And so that's what we did. We struck a deal, and I talked to an architect, and I knew the space relationships I wanted, and we just ended up building this house that I've been in since 1983. It's worked out well too, because I knew the space relationships I wanted, and it just worked out well, and I hadn't felt a need to move since. When I started to live on my own, aging wasn't part of my thought process at all. I just wanted to get along at the time, and it just wasn't part of my self-awareness. I work for a large corporation called CenturyLink Communications, and I have been in the corporate world my whole career. It's what I've done. And what's nice about a large corporation is you can sometimes move responsibilities within the corporation, keep you fresh, and more responsibilities, keep learning. I did mention that part of the aging process is accommodating certain things. And one of the big accommodations has been the ability and the desire, frankly, to work at home now. I spend a lot of my time working at home. I still have an office space downtown. My whole career has been sort of a businessman going to work. When I first started to do this type of work in 1979, I went to work every day. It was part of who I was. I got up, got dressed, and in those days, it was suit and tie every day, even Friday. So I'd do my thing in the morning and get dressed in suit and I was even able to fumble with getting a tie around my neck. Not a clip-on, a real tie. I'd tighten it up. Then I'd make the transition to my car and drive down, commute every day and go to my desk and be part of a team. And I did that for years and years. That's who I was. But part of the aging process, again, I had to make certain accommodations. Why make the commute if I don't have to? It was easier not to. So I'd log on in my desk and work all day long and save the commute, both directions, which was frankly good for the company because I'd spend the commute time logged on and working. But another reason for it is because it got harder to make the commute. It got harder to, I'm not as flexible as I used to be, and just got taking a little bit longer to get ready for the day. And sometimes it's still kind of hard. I still have trouble getting shoes on my feet, frankly, and it's kind of unseemly showing up at work with bare feet. Retirement used to be in the back of my mind, and now is sort of coming towards the middle of my mind as I think about retirement. It's, as I mentioned, I'm 61 now. 62 is kind of a milestone. And I just have to start thinking about it more than I have. One of the things I think about retirement, though, is I like what I do. I like what I do all day long. It's a good job. Frankly, I like what I do, and they pay me to do it. One of the things I have to think about is what will I do to fill up my day if I retire? That's kind of a big concern too, because I haven't been one to develop necessarily hobbies or interests or passions that would fill up the day. I can only watch baseball, one game a night, and that's only for six months out of a year. So what else am I going to do? But I say that, on the other hand, it will be kind of fun to explore what to do. As I mentioned, I never really developed passions or interests, but maybe I can. Maybe I can look around and come up with something that would be of interest that I would look forward to getting up to do the next day. I don't know. Well, I do know it's out there. I do know it's out there. I just haven't lifted my head up off the keyboard enough to go explore. But I will when I'm ready to not do the daily work someday. So we'll see. Dealing with aging makes a lot of sense. One is I know I should be doing certain things to make it easier to age. I know this. I know I should be stretching my legs more than I do. I know that. And I know I should probably be doing more upper body exercise. I know that. But I'm not very disciplined at doing it. So I do deal with things as they come up, primarily. And yet, I know this stretch of the legs is so key, because it's just this not being as limber as I used to be is getting to be more of an issue than before. So I need to work on it. I need to figure out how to get shoes on my feet, for one thing. I know that. And it's my goal. Maybe that's how I can fill up the day when I retire, is to figure out how to get more flexible or spend more time exercising. Because frankly, working all day long takes a lot of time. So I'll do it. But no, I am more reactive than proactive. But now that I have aged, and I'm still aging, I'm becoming more aware of it. Fortunately, the home has worked out pretty well. I might do something down the road about the bathroom, might be more accommodating, but so far it's worked out very well. I've had to do certain things like put a riser on the toilet seat, for instance, because I'm finding I'm not as strong as I used to be. But you know what I've heard about aging is that's common for everybody. Everybody, as they get older, get weaker, not just me. That's what I've learned. And so I've had to make accommodations, just like anybody makes accommodations. And so, and I've had to, as I've aged, I've had to learn certain tricks that I didn't think of before. For instance, I used to be able to just hop from the chair and onto the bed and get in. Now I have to be more aware of it to make certain I'm stable as I make the transfer. Then I've had to figure out, how do I get my feet in? How do I get my legs in? So I've had to work on a way to do that. And what's funny about aging is, even though I've been using this chair and doing this thing for 40 years, I'm still learning new tricks. It's funny. It's funny how you process things. Just kind of think about them and say, well, I'm going to try this out. And it worked. I figured out a way to get my right leg in the bed, which was easier than before. And it's one of those things, well, how come I hadn't been doing that for 30 years? It seemed to work. And so now, just a little trick I've learned to get along a little easier. When I mention tricks or easier ways to get around, I just kind of think about it and think about what might work based on experience or what I can dream of. I don't go online. I don't socialize with people that may have been in the same position to get tips. It just hasn't been the way it is. When you talk about seeking out different resources, I ran into sort of a period of time where I needed expertise from professionals. So I struck up a relationship with a physiatrist to help me out of a jam. And I was having changes in my, frankly, my bladder management. I didn't know what to do. So the physiatrist referred me to a urologist. And through their expertise, I was able to figure out a new way of doing things. That's pretty successful. So I seek help from the professionals, not necessarily a sort of a group of like situation people. Just kind of how it's been. It was a hard transition. From manual to power was a hard transition in two ways. One was a physical transformation. And I say that because I've been using a manual chair for 38 years. It's always manual. This one I'm sitting in now is an example of it. And it's just who I was, using a manual chair. But I got to, part of the aging process was I could not make the transfer as reliably as I used to. And the biggest problem was transferring from my car to the chair. Because the seat is lower, and I'd have to somehow get from the low seat to my chair. And it was a result of aging, I think, which was, I wasn't as strong as before. And I wasn't as reliable as doing it. And I was stuck. Kept having to call the fire department too often to be reliable. And I knew that it wasn't going to get easier. Time was going to pass, and I was going to get weaker and more likely call the fire department every day. Well, that wasn't acceptable, so I had to do some thinking about the change. So I knew I had to make the change. It was hard in two ways, as I mentioned. One was a physical. I had to talk to the physiatrist and just figure out the actual chair to use and get the prescription and get the chair. Then, fortunately, I had the wherewithal to get a van to get around. So that was part of it. But frankly, the hardest part was the mental transition from manual to power. It was just not me, frankly. I was super quad using a manual chair. That's who I was. Everybody knew me that way. And I was a business person who happened to use a chair, and it was a manual chair. And making the transition from manual to power, in my mind, was hard to do. It was very hard to do. I had to do it, but doing it was a very hard mental transition for me. It just wasn't who I was. It was changing my identity, and I didn't like it. Yeah, I'm still who I am. It's, I've heard that in my case in particular, I am my own worst critic. But somebody sat me down, who I like a lot, and she said, "It didn't matter. You're still who you are," which is true. And I know that intellectually, but still, the transition it was hard. I'm getting over it now because the power chair in my van has a lot of pretty nice functionality to it I never had before. Before I always had to, when I was using my manual chair in my car, I was never 100 yards away from my car. And I always had to be aware of where I parked and had to eyeball that ramp. Can I make it up that ramp? Or is there a better place to park? Or do I skip going to that place altogether? And now with this power chair in my van I get around with, it's pretty amazing what it can do. I can go down the street pretty readily. Yeah. I even did an experiment once just to see the limits of this power chair, and I went to Green Lake by myself and just went around the lake, the whole thing, fast as I could. This chair is pretty fast. It'll go 6 miles an hour, I believe. I don't feel a need to do it again, frankly, because when people go around a lake, they do it for two reasons. One is for companionship, and the other is to get exercise. Oh hell, if I'm just going around my chair, I'm not getting either one. So I'll just skip it. Emotional adjustment it's come to pass. I know now that when I leave my house, I transfer to my power chair so that I can go to my van and go. That's how it is. And that's how it's going to be, and so that's just how it is. So I'll do it. It doesn't really matter, frankly, because that's who I'm going to be, using a power chair in my van to get around. It's just who I am now when I go out. It's just, but it is when I go out. The power chair is not as agile as a manual chair is. It's just a little more cumbersome, and I can't pick stuff up off the floor like I did, and it's just, so I use my manual chair in the house just because it's just easier, frankly. But the transitions come to pass, and so it's what I am, what I do when I go out. When I left the hospital in 1976, I just hadn't been back, really, to see a professional team. In fact, there was a while there I didn't even see a doctor at all until I got smart and said maybe I should get a checkup. So my medical team has been a primary care physician for annual or almost annual checkups on routine things. And I've had another part of the aging process is do things that you're supposed to do when you get older, like colonoscopies, which are very fun to do as you do the preparation for it. But so those are done on a routine basis, and I've done other tests as needed. But it's all been through my primary care physician. I had a scare a while back about spots on something on my liver. That was a concern that was diagnosed as nothing to be concerned about. But I still did treat it. And I've had some issues about, I was scared about a blood clot in the lower extremity, but that was all through my primary care, and she referred me to experts. I did have, though, a need to talk to a physiatrist about getting older with respect to not just the power chair. I had to talk to her about that, about the changing that perspective. But I also had something funny occurred as I got older with respect to bladder management. Things weren't working like they used to, and it's all due to aging. Don't know why things changed, but they did, and I didn't know what was going on, and I had to talk to her about that, and so I did. And it was not uncommon, evidently. It happens to other people that use chairs. I just wasn't aware of it, but she certainly was, and she referred me to a urologist, and they got me onto a new program that seems to be working. Well, with respect to my rehab team, my medical team now, I am going to visit the physiatrist every year or so. Dr. Crane, I like her. I like her as a doctor, and I like her because I believe she has my interest at heart. And I think it's good for me to check in with her, just to make certain I'm on the right path to stay healthy. When I was injured and realized I had to live this life using a chair, I was not drawn to the community of others that also had to use chairs. I wasn't drawn to it. And it wasn't for a lack of trying either, because when I first came to Seattle, there was a group that got together for reasons of fundraising for spinal cord research or something. I even attended a couple of meetings to see what it's all about, and it wasn't for me. It wasn't socializing or hanging out with others that were in the same situation. It wasn't for me. I'm not really sure why. I think one reason, though, it wasn't me. I didn't view myself as somebody that used a chair. I was Joe that was a business person that was a product manager at the phone company. And I had a circle of friends that didn't use chairs. I didn't use a chair. I was just me. And so I didn't want to be defined by the guy that uses the chair happens to be a product manager. That wasn't me. I was a product manager. I happened to sit down a lot. So I didn't go to these meetings where there were other people that used chairs, because I didn't view myself as disabled necessarily. You know, I sat down and I had to do my thing using a chair, but I wasn't how I defined myself. And I didn't want to be reminded, I think, of that by others. Maybe that was a mistake. Maybe I would have learned a lot over the years by comparing notes. And maybe I would have had more self-esteem by viewing others that use chairs. And I say that because of the recent meetings on this mentoring. I Thrive. Now, is that it? Okay. Because having met the people that attended that has been good. It was kind of fun to see others who were in similar situations, and I view them just as I have hoped to be viewed all these years, as just somebody that uses a chair. Just normal people in every regard. Just happen to sit down a lot or have limited hand function. So what? And maybe that would have been reinforced all these years had I been around these people more than I have been. But I hadn't. It just wasn't just how it wasn't, I guess. I think if you're newly injured, the advice about aging is to have it in mind. You just know it's going to come. And if you can prepare for it, great. But you're going to age whether you want to or not. Everybody does. And so you do what you can now to be prepared for it. And that is, depending on your situation, to do what you can to prepare for the future, whatever that might be, whatever you can do might be. But just know it's going to come. If I had it to do over with respect to aging, what I would have done perhaps is pay more attention to flexibility. I say that, but it's not like I ignored aging altogether, because I did have an exercise program all these years. I would go to work and I'd come home. And I didn't feel like my day was complete until I did 30 minutes of strengthening on my legs, as I could do. Then once I got the 30 minutes done, then my day was complete. So my advice as you age is get the work in, and when you do age, it'll be easier when it comes, because it's going to come. But prepare for it, all the better. But as far as more wisdom than that, I don't. It's just get along. Yes, I have lived alone all these years without help coming in for ADLs or other help like that. But I have had a nice support system through all these years. I've had a rock solid fallback in case I do get in a jam. I'm real fortunate and blessed to have family members live in the area, 2 brothers and a sister. A sister now, she moved back from the Midwest about 5 years ago now. And it's been terrific support. I know that if I, like I mentioned, if I get in a jam, I have support to come and help me out. And so that was like getting in a big jam. But on little things, my brother is real handy with a screwdriver and a hammer, and he's happy to do something for me. And my sister will help me out as well. Just little things that I would like to do. Usually go without, unless Connie was here to help. For example, little things like hanging a picture, or she was, we're good friends as well as siblings. We like to hang out with each other. I heard a phrase once which I like, is get back to a new normal. Get back to a stability of some sort, which I've done with this transition of late, a new normal, which seems to work. Yes, a new normal. It so happened that I just like that phrase. I used it with a boss about six or 8 years ago, because his wife was in an accident and became spinal cord damaged. And he knew I used a chair, even though we never met. I guess word gets around. He just wanted to chat with me about life using a chair. And I use that same phrase. Dwayne, it's a traumatic now, but things will even out. You'll get to a new normal. And your wife will too. Both of you will have a new normal. And it'll be a good normal. You might not think so at the time, but it's a good normal, I believe. Yeah. Life is, as we age, things come up, but you get over it and get on to still have a pretty good life. And frankly, another element of the aging process is, at this station in my career, I'm at the tail end of my career. I'm not needing to make a big splash with higher ups or get my name out there in the spotlight. I don't like the spotlight after all these years. If my boss is willing to lead the charge in a new project, I'm happy to have him get all the credit. I mean, I deflect the credit to others if I can do it. I don't need it at this time, at this station in my career, which suits me just great. It's a very comfortable place. I have to admit, when I was younger in my career, I wanted to stay employed, so I wanted to make a good impression, and I wanted to be viewed as valuable employee. And I have to admit I was successful because I've had a nice career. I've stayed with the company when a number of other people through these transitions were let go. I was viewed as valuable and stayed and have been made a nice living doing it. So it's been good. It's been real good.